the journalist says, "When I enter, the house manager announces Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, even though we appear to be the only two people in the house."
It just makes me think that this whole thing is so confected and contrived.
I don't think it's just quite extraordinary and shows a level of insecurity, would you say?
I just hope that when William gets in, he strips them of the titles, because I just don't think she's deserving of them, and I think she's abusing them at this point.
She spoke about Harry, his childlike wonder and playfulness.
If she did that while they were still living in the UK, he would be absolutely ridiculed.
I want a bit of realism from Meghan. She's not giving any of it.
But she's still getting paid to do it.
Good for her, but I think it's the last that we'll see of her on Netflix.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive, where this week Sarah Ferguson's fighting to reclaim her narrative as she looks to bag a new tell-all interview, while the spotlight on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shows no sign of cooling. Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales tackles addiction and mental health, and over in Montecito, Meghan Markle puts on a royal front for her Harper's Bazaar cover interview. I'm The Sun's royal editor Matt Wilkinson, and today I'm joined by Elsa Anderson, former press secretary to Queen Elizabeth II, and news commentator Samara Gill. Welcome to you both. Now, I've introduced you there with a little bit of a background on who you are, mainly for our viewers, even though they probably know exactly who you are. But Samara, if you were to be introduced into a room and there was just two people, would you expect your name and your title to be read out? I'm referring to Meghan Markle's Harper's Bazaar interview, and I'll explain what I mean. So in this article, the author, the journalist says, "When I enter, the house manager announces Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, even though we appear to be the only two people in the house." What's going on there?
I mean, when I get introduced, I like to be introduced in a much more highfalutin manner to what I am, just like Meghan. I mean, it's quite interesting. That is very telling of how Meghan is and how she sees herself. I mean, she was staying at her friend's brownstone. It was completely empty. This member of staff isn't even someone on her staff. It was just a random member of staff that was in the house at the time. So that tells you a lot about, I guess she must have instructed him or her to say that. It just makes me think that this whole thing is so confected and contrived, and she thinks that she's working the media, but actually she's doing herself a massive disservice by coming across very inauthentic.
Well, this is not even working the media, really. This is her almost in a private, or, it's not in public. She's sitting there with a journalist in a room, and she's been introduced as the Duchess of Sussex. So, this article in Harper's Bazaar, we'll go into it in a little bit more detail. There's some fascinating aspects in it, but it appears that the title Duchess of Sussex is very important to Meghan.
I think it is very, very important. And I have to say, in the 13 years that I worked in the royal household for the late Queen, I've never, ever seen anything like that before.
Really? That didn't happen when you had the late Queen or Charles?
I mean, for the Queen, if she was having an audience, then the equerry would come in with, say, for example, the Prime Minister, and he would say, "Your Majesty, the Prime Minister." That's protocol. But she was the monarch and she was doing head of state business. To have this for the Duchess of Sussex, and clearly she wanted it to happen so much to remind people, yes, I am a member of the royal family, I don't think it's just quite extraordinary. And shows a level of insecurity, would you say?
Totally. I mean, we can see that insecurity even when she sent that letter to Jamie Kern-Lima, the podcast host, with, again, the titles totally sort of misused on a letterhead. I do think that she uses that with every scrap that she can to try and lift herself up status-wise, especially in America, where titles mean something different over there, definitely to over here. But I just hope that when William gets in, he strips them of the titles, because I just don't think she's deserving of them, and I think she's abusing them at this point.
Well, there is a theory, because concentrating on this use of Duchess of Sussex, and you point out about the letter she sent to Jamie Kern-Lima. I remember that it had her HRH, I think, on it.
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
But we've seen what's happened to Andrew. We've seen how that it is possible for titles and Prince and Princess titles, Duchess of York titles and Prince Andrews to be removed. It feels that she is keeping possibly on about how she is the Duchess of Sussex because these titles can actually be removed.
I think the circumstances between Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and the Duchess of Sussex are different. I mean, clearly the negativity surrounding Andrew's story, that's been going on for 15 years. I remember dealing with it in 2010 when those photographs, those infamous photographs of Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein in Central Park were first published. That is a story that has not gone away. So I do think circumstances are different. And I also don't think the king at the moment, with everything else going on in his life, including still battling cancer, he's got probably the mental and physical capacity to do that, to take that step. I don't know what you think.
Do you think I'm being silly by suggesting that possibly she's insisting to being called Sussex so often to basically just lay her tanks on the lawn and say, I am Sussex, you can't take Sussex away from me?
It's Meghan Sussex now. That was her line in her cooking show. Yeah, look, I think there are two schools of thought here. I think that I agree the king is totally burdened at the moment, and that's probably the last thing he wants to do. It's also his son, which is obviously a different relationship to his brother. I think that Meghan and Harry will use them regardless, and it's quite upsetting because the late Queen's wishes were that they didn't have this 1 foot in, 1 foot out relationship with the royal family, and that's exactly what they're doing. So they're actually sort of trashing her wishes and not abiding by what she wanted them to do. So I think it's massively disrespectful, but I think even if the titles are stripped, they will use them. They will appear on some letterhead in California. I just think that's the way they are.
Let's just move on slightly in this article. So it came out last week. It reminded me of a previous article I remember a few years ago in The Cut, where it almost felt like the journalist or the interviewer was slowly skewering Meghan and slowly pulling her apart and almost deliberately embarrassing her. That was my inference from reading it, because there were some strange things in there. It wasn't just the, announcing me into a room, even though there was only two of us there. She mentioned that they sat at a prime table so other diners could see the three of us. She seemed to be insisting that, or seemed to be explaining that, she also wrote that Meghan is remarkably at ease with the surrealism of global celebrity. In fact, she seems to enjoy it. So what was your taking from this depiction of her in Harper's Bazaar?
Well, it's all about ego and vanity. I want to be seen by other people about my status. If it was me, I'd be doing the interview in a private room, a private dining room, not being gawped at by everybody else. So again, it's all about status, it's all about vanity, it's all about ego.
What about bravery?
I don't think it's bravery to be seen at the Polo Bar in Beverly Hills. I mean, that is a place where you go to be seen. This is total, not status, this is staging of Meghan's life. And she's genuinely, this is where you would go to get paparazzi'd. Everyone in the D-list celebrities go there to be seen and paparazzi'd. It just shows to me that this was never about privacy for Meghan, even though she continues to say, we wanted privacy, that's why we left the firm. Oh yeah, no. If you want privacy, you don't go to Beverly Hills at the best restaurant there where all the sort of celebrities hang out.
There was a celebrity they said that she spoke to. They didn't name that celebrity. Do you remember that? And I do know I've been out to Montecito, and I do know that they've bumped into John Travolta there before. Harry's had a little chat with John Travolta when they've been at the Polo Lounge as well. So it's a great place. The Polo Lounge is a great celebrity hangout. We're talking about bravery. So there's another quote here from this article where she's talking about her children and jam. And she says, I hope they see the value of being brave. They saw it when the jam was just a pot on the stove bubbling.
I don't even know really what that means. I'm so sorry. I mean, what does that mean? It goes completely over my head. And it just goes back to the narrative that she's talking nonsense. I mean, really? Jam?
Jam's very important to her, and it's kind of defined or kind of explaining how brave she is with this project.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for that.
It's utter drivel. I completely agree. I just think that, she's using jam as this sort of thing to hide behind. But the reality of the situation is that she's doing nothing brave in her life. I mean, for 5 years, or almost 6 years, she's been out of the royal family. She's been said that she was gagged while she was in there. Clearly, she's not. I mean, she hasn't got anything better to say now. There's nothing brave about what she's doing. And I think about some of the royal family members who, fought in wars or represented the country. That's bravery. Not posing for a photo shoot with Harper's Bazaar. It's ridiculous.
Well, there's two other things from there that we picked out. She spoke about Harry, his childlike wonder and playfulness.
I think he would hate that.
Do you think he would?
I think he would hate that. Yes, I think he'd absolutely.
Because a couple of days ago, she was showing, the amazing footage when he's in Helmand Province, when he's in Afghanistan, and the alarm goes, and he's the hero running off to jump in his helicopter, and then she's calling him childlike wonder and playfulness.
Yeah. I think if she did that while they were still living in the UK, he would be absolutely ridiculed, especially by his former military colleagues, who would absolutely roll their eyes heavenwards. They really would.
Okay, it's a remarkable interview, I think, and a remarkable depiction or portrayal of Meghan. Definitely worth a read. Just before we move on from it, can you tell me about this? So she was makeup free. Is that right? On the cover shot, this is not the first time she's been makeup free. I think with Jamie Kern-Lehman, when she did the interview, she was talking about being makeup free during the interview. I mean, is this strong, brave Meghan? Is this a good look for her?
I mean, if this is her version of, again, bravery, this is pretty ridiculous. I mean, this was a thing that in Hollywood probably 6 years ago was some sort of form of bravery, and you would, not have makeup on. I know Pamela Anderson has been doing it among other celebrities. But I just don't think, Meghan pared back. We don't want the physical pared back of her. We would love a little bit more about what she's actually going through, a little bit more transparency. And I think that she's almost using that to deflect from the fact that she's not giving us anything within that interview. So I just think that it's a sort of farce at this point. And also, I think she probably did have makeup on. I don't think that was I don't know. I don't think it was fully her bare-faced and on the cover.
It's interesting to talk about what Meghan gave, what Samara was talking about, what Meghan gave in the interview. Elsa, you must have had many members of the royal family, just finally before we move on to the next topic, you've had many members of the royal family being approached by magazines, by broadcasters asking for an interview. There would often have to be a point behind that interview.
Absolutely.
How would it work normally?
Normally, you'd have to have a hook. So, for example, if the Prince's Trust was 50 years old, that is an anniversary, that's a hook. So the Prince of Wales then may consider giving an interview, but actually to highlight the charity and the work that it's doing, so shining a light on the amazing work it does. I don't really see the point of this Harper's Bazaar article apart from displaying Meghan's ego. It's not about charitable endeavours, it's about her. So, what is the point? And I think, actually, I don't know whether it's sat very well with the public.
I think, I think we've all read it. I'm not sure if the public have really got engrossed in it. I will ask what is the point. To be honest, Elsa, I'm often left thinking that when I'm reporting on Montecito. But it's really interesting that there didn't seem to be a reason for it. There didn't seem to be anything she was promoting or anything like that.
And I heard it was 5 years in the making. Is this true? I read
What?
somewhere that this was 5
joking?
years that she was planning this. I don't know whether that's true or not. If I read it in The Sun, it must have been true.
Must have been true. Right, let's move on to another person who may well be speaking or may well be doing an interview if we believe the front page of The Sun, which I'm often inclined to. So Sarah Ferguson has been offered lots of opportunities to give a tell-all interview. This is obviously coming off quite a year for Sarah and Andrew with everything that's been going on. We're losing their titles, we were discussing earlier, and being kicked out of Royal Lodge. We've seen she's done interviews before. Harry and Meghan have done interviews before. Samara, should Sarah speak out?
I think it's not right that she is going to speak out, but I think she will. Should she? I mean, she needs the money. She needs the cash. It's as simple as that. This is the scenario that I worried about the most, to be honest, for the royal family, because both her and Andrew have absolutely nothing to lose at this point. Who knows whose dirty laundry they will then air out? I don't think it'll be their own, but I think that because of the big amounts of money, six-figure sums that are being thrown around for this interview, who knows who she'll talk about, because she probably won't brief about Andrew. She probably won't even really talk about herself unless it's about her struggle. She might talk about other royal family members and throw them under the bus, and that's what I'm worried about.
She's not a working royal. She's not given any money by us, the taxpayer, or by the royal family. She's not married to anyone. She's actually been a tenant for Andrew at Royal Lodge for so many years. Why shouldn't she be allowed to talk about what's going on?
She's high risk, though. She's got an extravagant lifestyle. I mean, I agree with you. Why shouldn't she be allowed to talk? I mean, she's lived amongst the royals for so many years, living with Andrew up until a couple of weeks ago. I know that she's been flung out on her own, and Andrew's been put up in Sandringham. But I don't think she should be speaking out. I don't think it's appropriate.
Well, there is an element of there is taste. you know, we have criticised Meghan in the past and Harry in the past for over-speaking and oversharing. So that's possibly the huge danger here. But there are questions that she needs to address with things like Epstein and Prince Andrew.
I mean, what we don't want to happen is for her to give an interview and it ends up like the Newsnight car crash, because it depends on who the interviewer is. And, you know, she might think she's going to get an easy ride, but you're not going to be a journalist if you don't ask those tough questions. And sometimes she's like a bull in a china shop. She just can't help herself. You know, she might think in her head, I can't answer that, but then the words are already out of her mouth. And that would be a disaster for the royal family.
We'd love to have her on here. You're talking about six-figure sums there. I'm sure we could stretch.
I've got a fiver.
We've got a fiver. We could all chip in, and definitely. What would you, if she was to speak, if she was to give an interview, what would you want to hear from her?
I'd love to hear a sort of apology. I know that she shouldn't be held accountable for...
We didn't get one from Andrew.
Well, exactly. I think that there should be some accountability. I mean, I know that she shouldn't be held responsible for her husband's alleged actions, but I do think that there needs to be some sort... Like, I just don't want it to be a pity to her, because I really don't have that much pity for her at this point.
And of course, she did send that email to Epstein afterwards,
Correct.
apologising for calling him a paedophile.
Yeah, she's been chummy. You know, she'll go where the money is, and that's always been my worry about Fergie.
Elsa, I'll put you on the spot. So if you were still working for...
I'm so glad I'm not.
But if you were still working for the royal family and the, you know, private secretary to King Charles, they called you in, and King Charles called you in and said, Sarah Ferguson's going to give an interview. What should we advise? What should we do? How would you react in the palace walls if you were told that Sarah was going to give an interview?
I have to say, firstly, doom and gloom. You'd have to see what she's going to say. I think never do a knee-jerk reaction. Don't be painted into a corner and then asked to do something immediately. You see what she says, analyse it. What you don't want to do is add fuel to the flames of anything that she has said and prolong a story. So I think it'd be very much dependent on what she came up with. But it wouldn't be good news. And it distracts from all the good work that the royal family are doing. You know, we've got a state visit next week. What you don't want is her blowing that out of the water by giving an interview.
I mean, potentially, Sarah could be using this as a negotiating tactic.
Potentially.
You know, I might need a bit more money. Help me out with a property, but I won't do an interview. I won't do. You know, I won't go and do a tell-all chat with everyone if you can help me out a little bit. So.
Or maybe that deal has already been done. Who knows?
All right. Well, we're going to be talking about Sarah and Andrew for the next couple of weeks because we've still got till January, I think, till we actually find, you know, see where they've moved to, or actually till they actually get out of Royal Lodge. Let's get on. Let's move on to Prince Andrew. We've dealt with Sarah Ferguson. Prince Andrew is also possibly in hot water. So Mike Sullivan is our crime editor at The Sun, very good journalist, and he's been looking into this, what's happening with the police investigation, because the Mail on Sunday revealed a story that Andrew had sent an email asking for his close protection officer to dig up some dirt on Virginia. So a lot of the close protection officers now are very worried that their notebooks, their emails, any recordings, any evidence is now going to be handed over to the police. I'm of the theory that this is the direction that the Andrew and Sarah saga is going to go. I don't think Andrew's going to speak to the US Congress or anyone in America, but his trouble is going to be the Met Police here in the UK. Do you share these concerns, Elsa? Is Andrew in a lot of trouble with the police here? Well,
I think it would be very concerning if the Metropolitan Police did interview him. I know to date they haven't, but if what you said is true, then I'm sure there'll be huge concern within the royal household about what any evidence will be dug up by police officers, serving police officers. And also, you know, what the protection officers at the time can say about what happened. You know, they're the people that would be with him 24/7, and I'm sure they could give some clear insight about what went on.
They could give information about the Pizza Express, you know, story that he has up. I mean, I genuinely think this is really worrying for Andrew if the Met Police were to continue their investigation, Samara.
Yeah, the story is absolutely not over with Andrew, and he continues to kind of be this whirling dervish of media and publicity and bad, terrible stories that continue to come out about him in a good way, because we should be exposing the truth about who he was and what he did. But I think that why didn't this come out earlier? Why is he just being held to account now? You know, they had all this information beforehand and they haven't done anything with it. And we know that there were instances, I mean, I don't want to put this on the Queen at all, but he was Mummy's favourite and there were certain levels of protection that he enjoyed for years and years and years. I just get a little bit annoyed when I think, well, we had all this information. There were victims, there were young victims, and I know that we shouldn't say anything now, but I just don't think that, I think it's too little too late, essentially.
Just to be clear with this story that Mike, our crime editor, has written, he was talking about some of the police officers are concerned that as the Met Police investigate, something they may have done 20 years ago on the insistence of the Queen's son, that's what's kind of been investigated, notebooks and emails and stuff like that. I mean, there hasn't been any evidence found or anything like that yet, but this feels like the direction it's going, that the Met Police are taking it relatively seriously, which is a step up from what we previously had with Andrew. There we go. And he continues to deny everything as well. Yeah. Keir Starmer, so the British Prime Minister, has actually come out, and because I think the deadline has passed now for Andrew to speak to the US Congress, but Keir Starmer has said that Prince Andrew should, or someone in that position, if they have any information, they should talk to the authorities. Do we agree with the Prime Minister?
I think it's quite extraordinary that the Prime Minister has actually sort of spoken out about it, because politicians tend not to speak publicly about issues concerning the royal family and the household. So I do think it's quite an unusual and quite extraordinary step for the Prime Minister to say that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, though, in this case. I think he's had to come down hard on Andrew publicly. And, yeah, I think in very extreme circumstances like this one, it's appropriate. Yeah.
Not going away. We spent a lot of time on this show so far talking about non-working royals and the family drama and TV shows. Could we spend a bit of time talking about what the royals have actually been doing this week? Princess of Wales, she released a statement on Monday for, I think it was Addiction Awareness Week. She's getting herself into some quite strong topics. She isn't just someone who just turns up and shakes hands and smiles. She's actually facing up and actually doing some good things, Elsa.
Absolutely. But I think she's done that from the get-go, really. You know, she took her time choosing which charities and patronages she wanted to champion. And then she really, she wasn't just a figurehead. She wasn't just a name on the top of a letter. She wanted to get involved. She wanted to meet people privately. She wanted to converse with them. She wanted to really have an in-depth knowledge about the organisations that she was going to champion. So I think she's doing an extraordinary job. And I think she's doing more and more as well. She's really sort of holding people's attention. She's taking the platform. She's taking ownership of the charities that she wants to be involved with.
So she says, addiction is not a choice or a personal failing, but a complex mental health condition that should be met with empathy and support. Samara, she's tackling serious issues.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, when she speaks, people actually listen. And I think she actually understands the massive platform that she has. She is one of the most beloved royals on all the charts.
I totally agree. And if you look back at the engagement interview that Tom Bradby did with them, she was very hesitant. She was nervous, and she kept looking at William, just almost seeking approval. And now she's a superstar in her own right. Yeah. She really has taken ownership. So I totally agree with what you've said.
I think they've both grown up. I was with William in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, and I was out there. It just felt more mature. The whole house feels a little bit more mature and comfortable at the moment. Although William was having fun this week in North Wales. Did you see William? He was playing pool. He went to North Wales and he was looking at some community groups, and he was playing a bit of pool, and he was hanging out with. He went to a comedy workshop.
Oh yeah, yeah, that works for him. He is the funniest royal, in my opinion.
Well, we might get onto that later. And finally, for this segment, it's with a heavy heart I want to talk about Meghan's Festive special, because I know that next Wednesday we're going to have to sit down and watch it. But there's been a trailer, Samara. Have you watched the trailer? I
have, and she looks like a crazed forest nymph, just sort of running through the pine trees, and it's all. The only thing that's missing is her family or any sense of family. It's a bunch of people on the payroll of Netflix and different fake friends that she's invited.
You say not just the family. Prince Harry's in the trailer.
Well, that's the one person. It's going to be quite a lonely Christmas in Montecito when she's surrounded by just her children who have never met their cousins and Harry. because they're estranged from everyone else. And I've got time, by the way, for estranged families. It's a very normal thing. Everyone's got a crazy uncle or a mum that they don't want to associate themselves with. But I just hate the fakery of it. Don't pretend that you're having this wholesome Christmas. I want a bit of realism from Meghan. She's not giving any of it.
Oh, so
But she's still getting paid to do it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
She brought in Harry for the trailer. Is that what this show needs? I think they're kissing, weren't they? They were having a little,
good
little
Lord.
kiss in the thing. Is that what the show needs?
I think it's just smacks of desperation, Matt, doesn't it? You know, what's she going to do next? You know, will Harry appear in the actual series? Is he just having a tiny segment in for the trailer, and then that's it, and we won't see any more of him?
Well, surely a festive special should have family.
One would like to think so, but who knows with her? I shall be glued to my Netflix TV next week to watch it and see what she comes up with, because she's got to pull something out of the bag.
There's also an advert at the end, I believe, to buy her jam, Samara. Have you seen that? And then I believe part of the trailer, she's made an edible wreath out of broccoli and greens.
Ew!
Yeah, exactly. First of all, no, like, where are the potatoes, where are the carbs? Because that's what my Christmas looks like. It doesn't look like, you know, greens and a random dip that's probably low fat. I just think that, yeah, first of all, it's sort of not cordon bleu that she's gone and done that. There's no culinary excellence within this cooking program, even though she kind of pretends to be that. And in terms of the jam, it's 20% off. Black Friday sale at the moment. I don't want this to look like an advertisement for it, but she's very eager to shift that jam. It didn't sell out immediately on a second or third drop. So I think she's having plenty of issues, because she told Bloomberg that she's, you know, ordered hundreds of thousands of units because they kept selling out. They haven't managed to sell that out. So I guess if this is one last ditch effort to get rid of that jam, good for her. But I think it's the last that we'll see of her on Netflix. She's cozied up to Jeff Bezos at Kris Jenner's birthday party. She's looking for the next prospect. Yeah, this might be the last we see of her on that streaming platform.
And then next week, just looking forward a little bit further, we have the release of her new show, and I keep mixing up. Is it called With Love or As Ever? With Love.
With Love.
Called With
Yeah.
Love, and the product
Yeah.
As Ever, because the brand is so superfluous. I really struggle. But a couple of days later, Princess of Wales will be holding her carol concert at Westminster. So Christmas does feel like it's starting now. The royals are starting Christmas.
Yeah, and I love the Westminster Abbey carol concert that the Princess of Wales started, and I think it means something really important to her. And it's a real family occasion. You know, you have the wider royal family, apart from Andrew and Sarah, turning up. And I just think it feels like Christmas. It feels really special.
We're nearly there. Right, we've just got time for quickfire questions. So take a deep breath. Prince William, as I said earlier, visited a comedy workshop. But which royal would be the best stand-up comic?
I mean, I would say, I know I said William, but also the late Philip, Prince Philip. But I just don't, I don't know.
Not a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way. I don't know if it'd be safe. He'd probably get cancelled after one set, but I did think he was hilarious at the time.
Well, you must have worked with Philip. You must have heard some.
Yeah,
I
stand-up
sure have. I've got many stories to tell
back
about
me up.
that. But I think Zara and Mike Tyndall, actually, I think they'd be a good double act on the comedy circuit.
That's quite a good idea.
Yeah,
good answers.
Get them on.
Now, after the reports that Sarah Ferguson is shopping around for a sit-down interview, which royal would you like to quiz in a tell-all interview?
I want, sorry, but Meghan. I need Meghan to actually sit down with a proper journalist. She keeps sitting down with podcast hosts and CEOs and different people who aren't actually journalists. I want her to be properly interrogated, not in a crazy, torturous way, but I want some
Thanks
proper.
for clearing it up.
Well, I want some proper questions. Well, I want some proper questions flung her direction. That I want something bolshy.
I think Prince George.
Ooh.
What's it like being an emerging, leading member of the royal family? What school do you want to go to, George? What are your parents really like when the doors are closed?
Ooh.
God, imagine that. He's only 12.
And it doesn't matter.
Which is
Doesn't matter.
perfect, because
Yeah.
he won't lie,
Yeah.
You have to give
And he
him
won't be
credit.
schooled.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prince George.
Wow, what a great idea. I keep going to recommend saying I just want George to grow up. I think it's too early. I just want him to be a boy. I want him to go around, get dirty, fall over, get in fights, play football, break your leg or something. You know what I mean? Just want to go and have fun before we actually...
And then someone feed those stories to you.
Oh, yes, please, if anyone is. Right, and finally, I mentioned about the broccoli and green wreath, okay? So after Meghan's weird edible wreath preview, what royal would you want to help with your Christmas dinner preparation?
Ooh.
Queen Camilla, definitely, because I think she'd have a fag in one hand and a glass of red wine in the other, and her son Tom is a food critic, so she obviously knows her way around a kitchen. She was an army wife, so I think she'd be great. She'd be a bit of a laugh.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, she'd be great. I'd say Charles. I know he's a health nut and he's a bit of a freak with all his food, and he wants specific food at specific times. But I think he'd be very helpful, and he'd be out in the garden getting me all the carrots and things that I need for my roast.
I was thinking you mentioned George earlier. I remember a couple of years ago he was making Christmas pudding, wasn't he?
Yeah.
With Catherine and William. Yeah, I'd like to have Prince George come around and help make the Christmas pudding. And then I'll do the interview.
And then do the interview. Perfect. Job
Awesome.
done.
Thanks, guys. Been through a lot, so I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much. That's all we have time for on this week's Royal Exclusive. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments as usual, and remember to subscribe to us here on our new Royal Exclusive YouTube channel for the latest on all things royal. We'll see you next week.